Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Kurt Leavins. Welcome, Kurt.
Hey, David. Almost Monday. Can't wait.
It's been kind of a nice break in that every day the Oilers get healthier, for one thing. And, the regular season was such a grind. It was so long. So the Oilers must be so happy that it's over and ready to get back to the real business.
Yeah, it truly was a grind, wasn't it? It was, especially the last third of the season. It's like,
yeah. Kurt, we're going to do something different today. We're going to start off with predictions, and then we're going to defend our answers in the Edmonton Oilers' upcoming series with the Los Angeles Kings, the fourth year in a row. Just one quick story, Kurt. I was listening to a Los Angeles Kings podcast.
Okay.
And Kings Locked Down, I think it was. Anyway, the hatred they have for the Oilers equals the hatred we have for the Kings. They think the Oilers are as dirty as we think the Kings are as dirty.
Oh, that's rich, hey?
They were going on and on about Darnell Nurse's blasting of Quinton Byfield's head with the cross-check, which got him one game. And they were irate. They were absolutely beside themselves with the injustice of that and other things which have happened against the Edmonton Oilers, which makes sense, right? Because they've been the losing team in the playoffs the last 3 years.
Yeah, sucks to be them.
Well, let's not gloat too much because you don't want to upset the hockey gourds.
I don't suppose in their podcast Mikey Anderson came up in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's top of mind for every Oilers fan, right? Because it was such a jackass play by Mikey Anderson. Yeah. And it was so costly to the Oilers that year. It was devastating.
Yep.
So no, they never think about that.
Fan bases, hey?
Yeah. All right, Kurt. So we're going to give our prediction, then we're going to give each of us will give 3 reasons why we think our podcast is correct and 1 reason why we might be incorrect. So why don't you kick it off? What is your prediction?
Okay. My prediction is, as they do on House and Home and all those those conversion shows that are on Home and Garden television, Oilers in 6.
Oilers in 6.
Oilers in
and
6.
I'm going to go for the, not many people are predicting this. I'm going to go Oilers in 5. And it's not a prediction that many people are making out there. Most people are picking the Kings, I understand. And but I'm going Oilers in 5. And Kurt, my main reason is one thing. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. McDavid looks complete. Those last few games that he played, he looked as good as he's looked all year. He was flying out there. He was making all kinds of plays. And if he's been in the NHL a long time now, he's been in 5, 6 playoff series. He knows the grind. He's been in the Stanley Cup final. He's been through it all. He realizes, especially from last year, but also from other years, how big a deal injuries play in this whole thing and fatigue. I think he's been pacing himself all year long. I think he is not really worried too much about the regular season, other than win, get through it, put up 100 points, be Connor McDavid, rev it up now and then. But to really go after it in a physical way, hitting, battling defensively, and this goes to a lesser extent for Draisaitl, who may be the NHL MVP, so it's a stranger argument to make with Draisaitl. But really with McDavid, he's been pacing himself, and he is ready. He's, I think, ready like he's never been before. He's got all this experience. He realizes the window's getting shorter. You don't have to be a genius to look at the age of NHL superstars when they win their Stanley Cups and know what that window is. It's between the ages of 20, if you're lucky, to about 34, 35. And then you might win the cup after that, but you're not the man. You're a support player on that team. And he's the man for 5, 6, 7, 8, tops 8 years more, like absolute top for winning that Stanley Cup, being good enough to drive a team to that. And it's probably closer to 5 than 8, I hate to say. But if I'm completely honest, that's what I think. The window's short. The time is now. He's going to do it. And he's going to make a statement in these playoffs, playing two-way hockey like we've never seen Connor McDavid play before. He's gone supernova in the past in the playoffs. He's played strong defense. But I think his physical play and his defensive play are going to be the shocker. He's going to really shut it down. The same goes for Leon Draisaitl, who had the best year, I think, of any player in the NHL this past year. I mean, there's a few others, obviously, in the conversation. So many great players.
Yep.
He's a beast in the playoffs. I think they would have won the Stanley Cup if he hadn't gotten hurt against Vancouver last year. You have those two players in their absolute prime, playoff prime, I'll say, not point scoring prime, but their two-way prime this year, right now. They will not be denied, and they're going to roll over the Kings. They're going to come at the Kings like the Kings haven't been come at all season long. It's going to happen out there. So,
well, if you hadn't picked that as your number one thing, I would have picked it. So in one way, you're preaching to the choir. But I'll hearken back to our second to last podcast when Ira Cooper was on in your stead. And he and I talked about this a little bit as well. And Ira made a couple really smart points, as Ira usually does. One is that when we watched McDavid play the last half dozen games of the regular season, Ira's observation was he looked fresh for the first time in a year and a half. Right?
Yeah.
And you know what? I went back and watched a little bit of a couple of those games after he said that to me. And I said, you know what? He does look fresh. And then the other thing we talked about was the players on that club having the realization after they lost Game 7 of just how much of a marathon it really is. And it kind of harkens you back to that story of the Oilers losing to the Islanders that final time, and the Oilers walking past the dressing room expecting to see a celebration. Instead, they saw all the Islanders standing there slumped over with ice packs all over them because they just had nothing left to give. I think the Oilers ran out of gas by Game 7 last year, and I think to the man they were determined not to let that happen this year. And so I agree with everything you said. And those 2 points of mine, and I want to give Ira some credit on both of those as well, that I think are going to be factors here over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
All right. What's your first point, Kurt?
My first point is forward depth. When I look at these two teams, and if I break them down into three, goaltending, defense, and forwards is where I believe the Oilers have the edge. Not only do they have the aforementioned Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on those top lines, and I guess we can run over the fact in practice today, the top line was Hyman, McDavid, Brown. Mm-hmm. Second line, Draisaitl, Podkolzin, and Arvidsson. But when you look at the third and fourth lines on this club, this might be the best third and fourth line the Oilers have ever had in the playoffs. This year, third line, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as your third line center. Yes, please. With Kasperi Kapanen and Jeff Skinner, who's been playing his best hockey down the stretch. And then the fourth line, Adam Henrique, who I'd be comfortable if Henrique was our third line center. That he's your fourth. You know what they say, when you push players down into the spot where they probably should be, and maybe Henrique at this point in his career should be a 4C, Janmark and Corey Perry are going to get decent matchups on that fourth line. And so when I look up and down this forward unit, I think they just man for man, not only do they have superior top end talent than the Kings, I think they have marginally better talent top to bottom. And that's without mentioning Evander Kane and Trent Frederick, both of which I expect will play. Frederick probably by Game 2. I'm mildly surprised he's not playing tomorrow. And in fact, I wonder if there's a little bit of a diversion going on here and he actually will play tomorrow.
Knobloch said he's a possible for Game 1 in his interview. So I'm taking that as a yes.
Yeah,
And I think he'll be in for Kapanen
yeah,
on that
and
third line.
Kane, from what I understand from the folks that I've talked to that are closer to this than I am, I think they've kind of ticketed Evander game for Game 3 at home in Edmonton. So if you add
Yeah.
those two guys into the mix, then I think there's a decided weight in the Oilers' favor when it comes to forward depth.
Yeah. This is a really good group of forwards.
It is.
And I know Podkolzin and Arvidsson have something to prove in terms of Arvidsson after his weakest regular season in some time. Podkolzin, kind of the interesting game that he plays. Not a lot of goals, but a lot of contributions to grade A shots and a lot of contributions to goals.
He might be a perfect
So
playoff performer. I think he might be a dark horse for this team, Podkolzin, because guys like that do well in the playoffs, right? He skates well, he plays a heavy game, and we all know how much heavier these games are about to get.
let me just check Podkolzin. Here's something kind of interesting, Kurt. So the video review work we do at the Cult of Hockey, we track how many contributions you make to goals. So you might screen the goalie and not ever touch the puck, but because of you screen the goalie you won, or maybe you won the battle behind the net, and again didn't even touch the puck, just took out someone who was going for the puck, the hard charge or a physical play. And so when we look at the rate at even strength of Oilers forwards contributing to goals, Podkolzin he's at the bottom of the top group. Hyman's at the very top. He's at 0.59
Which I'd expect.
contributions to a goal per game, 15 minutes even strength. Arvidsson 0.49, so Hyman 0.59, Arvidsson 0.49, Perry 0.49, Brown 0.46, and Podkolzin 0.44. He's not that far off. The better wingers on this team. Now, you could say some of it comes from playing with Draisaitl, who tends to finish what other players start, and that's a fair comment.
Absolutely.
But he has found a way all year long to contribute to goals, to make some plays. He doesn't have the points. He's doing a lot of the heavy lifting in front of the net and in the corners to score goals.
And has been a highly effective penalty killer as well.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the playoffs to judge those things, because, man, how they perform in the playoffs changes everything.
Well, and the Kings are such a strong special teams club, right? So
my second argument for this series finishing in 5 with the Oilers winning it is, like, even with Ekholm out, the Oilers still have a big three. And so let's say the big three on the team last year was Nurse, Ekholm, and Bouchard. Ekholm and Bouchard crushed it last year in the playoffs. They were unreal good. And the Oilers are going to miss that. They're going to miss Matthias Ekholm. But I do think Bouchard will elevate and bring that game again. I don't see any reason he can't. With him, it's often a matter of concentration, focus, intensity. He ramped it up last year in the playoffs. He's a young player. It should be easier for the next 4 or 5 years in the playoffs for him to play excellent hockey. So I'm not worried about Bouchard. Wallman, he is 29 and he's been around a while, played a lot of hockey. He just looks like a really good player. He is not Matthias Ekholm.
No.
He's not as good as Ekholm, but he's not that far off. Like, he's a really good puck moving defenseman. He's a good player. The guy I'm most excited about is Darnell Nurse, though. Last year, Darnell Nurse wasn't just like he was more than a negative. He was a massive negative. Every D partner he had until he played with Philip Broberg in the finals crumpled, and we were always blaming them. And and then finally it's like, what is going on with Darnell Nurse? He is just leaking goals against. Now we know now that he was injured then. Yep. And, a lot of the talk was he's also trying to do too much. That may be the case, or it may not. I don't know, but I do know injury is just a massive factor. That was a huge factor. He is playing super smart hockey right now, assertive at the right times and conservative at the right times. He's not, for instance, getting caught too much on bad pinches up the ice. Happens now and then, happens to every defenseman. he's cut down on that kind of high risk decision. He, like, instead of going for the 50-50 puck on that play, high risk play, it's got to be 70-30 or 80-20, then he'll do it. He's starting to play with a really nasty physical edge. I think he's healthy and good to go. And this is the year I've been waiting for Darnell Nurse to have a breakout playoff year, and he hasn't really had. He's struggled a bit in the playoffs. Two of the years of the last three, at least, he's been injured, which accounts for a lot of the struggle. But I think he's ready. I think he's going to really step up and be a physical force and play solid two-way hockey for the Edmonton Oilers. That gives, I think the Nurse was so bad last year that in terms of the big three on the team, I think overall you're in better shape. Now I'll talk a little bit later about what it comes after that, but I like this big three and I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah, in my exceeded met failed to meet expectation column, I had Darnell Nurse as a met expectations. And that's probably even a bridge too far for some Darnell Nurse haters. But I really felt like this was his best two-way season of his NHL career.
Oh, easily.
Right. I remember I never did write this because I just didn't feel right about it at the time. But when I was watching him in the playoffs last year, the thought kept going through my head, when did Darnell Nurse become easy to play against? Right?
Yeah.
But he was like, it just, Darnell, from the time he was a rookie in this club, always had a snarl in his game, always played with a nasty streak. And it just disappeared last year. And I think we know why now. It's because he just physically wasn't able to. But I see that snarl back in his game, and a mature Darnell Nurse, I think, is way better if he plays that way. I think it makes him way more effective. So I'm in the same church pew as you when it comes to Darnell Nurse. I would add a fourth though to your big three, and I think we see this player slightly differently, and that's okay. But I put Brett Kulak in that big four. I know, and you're correct. At times over the second half, he had some games that weren't up to his standards, and I totally agree with that. But you know what? Overall, I thought it was his best NHL season. Certainly was his best NHL season statistically. And if you look back at the last two playoff years, Brett Kulak was a revelation. He was terrific for this club in the playoffs. And I just don't see any reason why he won't step up on that stage again. So I'm with you with the big three, but I think Kulak makes four.
I think he wilted a bit with all the ice time he was getting. So the most, like last year on the Oilers, he played 15-23 in 23-24, and in 24-25 he played 20-32. He played 5 minutes a game more. And I think as the season went along, Kurt, that impacted his play. So I think I might have lost Kurt. Are you there?
You're back.
Yeah. Okay. I was just saying, Kulak played 5 minutes more this year than last year.
Yep.
And I think that weighed on him by the end. I hope, like, I don't think in the playoffs, he has been really good 3 years running in the playoffs. Ever since he's been here, he's stepped up considerably in the playoffs. There's something about it that brings out the best of him. I expect to see that again. So the reason I didn't mention him, I think he's the same. He'll be the same as he was last year. He'll be a solid hockey player. Last year he was this year. Now he played generally on the bottom pairing last year in the playoffs, and we'll see if they can afford to do that again. Kurt, what is your second thing?
My second thing actually starts off as a compliment, but it ends up as a negative for the Los Angeles Kings. I believe that in 2025, the Los Angeles Kings' two best players are Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty. I think they're their best two players. I have all the time in the world for Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala. Good players, but not great players. I still think the LA Kings only have two great players in their lineup, and they're Kopitar and Doughty. I have mad respect for both of these guys. I think Drew Doughty is one of the best defensemen of his generation. And Anze Kopitar may be on the list of the top 5 best two-way forwards of all time. Like, he's that good, right? However, both of these guys are 1,000 plus NHL games. One of them's 35. The other one's 37. If you go into a playoff series and your best players have that much mileage, that little tread left on the tires, I begin to wonder, as a series goes longer and deeper, if their effectiveness doesn't start to wear off. And again, I want to be clear for all those LA Kings fans out there who think I'm dissing their guys. I think the world of these two players. The problem is the Kings still have to lean way too heavily on both of them, and I think it's going to come and bite them in the ass.
Just looking at Kopitar's stats, he's amazing. His consistency in putting up between 60 and 75 points a year.
Yep.
He's done it in almost every single season he's played, except for a couple lockout years. But and then he had 2 years. One year he had 81 points, the other year he had 92 points. But he's just, and this year he had 67 points in 81 games. So, yeah, it's, as I was saying, these superstar players, they're going to need Adrian Kempe to be the best player on the team, and
Quentin Byfield's going to need to step up, right?
Quentin Byfield, Vladislav Gavrikov. This is possible. These are all really good hockey players.
Agree.
Kevin Fiala is a good shooter, and like there's lots of players on the Kings that worry me. Lots of good players on that team. This is not an easy series. Although I'm picking it in 5, this is not an easy series.
Yep.
This is a hell of a hockey team, especially defensively. All right. My third thing is the grumpy old men. They put together a line. We haven't seen it this year, but it's the 4th line, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see it game 1. And it's let me just get their ages correct.
It's got to be close to the oldest line in the NHL, right?
It's got to be the oldest line in the NHL. And who were the original grumpy old men for Dallas? Was that Carbonneau? I'll just Google that.
When you say grumpy old man, I keep thinking of Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. So,
well, there was a line in the for Dallas one year that was called the Grumpy Old Man.
Yeah.
I think it had Mike Keane, Carbonneau, maybe Scrudland, but I'm not exactly. I'll Google that in a second. Yeah. Anyway, this group of players is these grumps, and they are grumps, especially Perry. Janmark's just 32. Perry 39 and Henrique 35. So they average about 35 years old. And Henrique actually has struggled a bit, I think, with the speed of the game. He is slowing down, and we saw him exposed defensively a few times. Perry isn't fast either, although he's been pretty solid all year defensively. He knows, in a much less complicated role playing the wing as compared to center, he knows how to get it done. Janmark can be a brilliant defensive player, but he's trended down. Like each of the years he's been here, he's gotten slightly less effective defensively until last year in the playoffs when he just cranked it up to a new level. So that's what they need from Janmark. He's the only fast player on that line. He needs to use that speed to get on the forecheck and to get back on the back check and to buzz around. And then Henrique and Perry are such smart hockey players. I'm looking forward to see those two work the cycle down low. That could be a very tough job to stop them. For the opposing team, because both of them really know how to control the puck in tight, and then the other guy go to the net, and that'll be sweet if they can get it going. And I think because I'm picking it in 5, it's predicated all 4 lines. You're going to win in 5. You need all 4 lines to beat the competition or saw it off at least. You need, let's say, 3 to win and 1 to saw off.
That all makes perfect sense.
So I'm picking this line to win the competition. Maybe the 3rd line saw it off. We'll see if Kane or Frederick can change that equation. Like right now with Kasperi Kapanen, he's a cut below, and Skinner and Nugent Hopkins are smaller players. So I think they need to be with a really tough, bigger hockey player to get the most out of those two guys. But if they line up with Frederick or Kane, they'll feel a little bit bigger out there, I'm going to suggest. So, but that's the line I'm a little concerned about I'm not I'm not concerned. I just think Arvidsson's going to bring it, and Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman, and Connor Brown. Connor Brown, 4 goals in the last 5 games. He's
Yeah.
stepped up.
He's looked as good two-way as an Oiler as he has ever looked, I think. With Henrique, I don't disagree with your observations on him. I do think in context, though, a number of those games where I think he did look a half step slow. Remember, he was playing up in the lineup because McDavid and
Yeah.
Draisaitl, and sometimes both of them were out of the lineup, and he was up not just one, but sometimes 2 places. So I think that's a factor. Corey Perry, man, 39 years old, 19 goals, playing just 12 minutes a night. Like, how can you, even if you just hate his entrails, how can you not respect that? You know, that's one of the all-time great seasons by a 39-year-old in the National Hockey League.
Yes, I was just thinking worm entrails.
Right?
Ugh. Yeah.
I'm,
right.
I'm looking forward to that line about as much as you are.
What's your final point in favor of your Oilers in 6, Kurt?
We alluded to this for just a moment earlier on in the podcast. I believe the Oilers are healthier than they are letting on. And I don't mean to suggest there's a big charade going on here, but I do think there's a bit of gamesmanship. And we already talked about Frederick. I think both you and I will be mildly, if not majorly, surprised if Frederick isn't in the lineup for game 1. But from what I can gather, the only Oiler who is a ways away from playing is the aforementioned Matthias Ekholm, who I'll be shocked if we see him in this series. I think that's pretty much a fait accompli. But I expect to see Frederick tomorrow night, Monday night. I'm made to understand Evander Kane probably has game 3 back in Edmonton circled on his calendar. I think that's his ETA. And a lot of people are really concerned with Josh Brown on that third pairing. And look, I get that. Josh Brown has not been good for the most part at the NHL level in his brief time in the league this year. But I don't think he'll be there long because Troy Stecher is skating again. Yes, he was skating back in Edmonton, but I think it's possible he could be back for game 2. Certainly expected back before game 4. So that mitigates it because I think over the last 20 games, Troy Stecher has been the Oilers' 5th best defenseman.
Well, that segues to why I think my prediction might be wrong, and it is around Josh Brown. Kurt, he's all due respect. He is a hard-working, hard-nosed player, and he gives it his all. He is not fast enough to play in the NHL, and he gets eaten alive even against weak teams. Even against San Jose in a nothing game, he was struggling. He just does not have the agility to defend at the NHL level in a playoff game, I don't believe. And I'm worried he's going to cost them a goal or two. So I wouldn't, if I don't know if John Klingberg, where he's at.
He's cleared.
But I would, every day of the week, every day of the year, I would play a veteran NHL hockey player, even though he's been off for a while. I would play Klingberg over Josh Brown.
Well,
he helps you.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, David.
He helps you beat the forecheck. Like they get in the forecheck, he's agile enough to step around it, smart enough to pass around it. Brown isn't. I think Emerson will need that help. He can't be asked to carry Josh Brown. Like this will not work. It will not work. All due respect. Cam Dineen. I would rather have Cam Dineen in there. Cam Dineen, he's as weak defensively in a different way than Brown. He will cause a goal against, but at least he might cause a goal for with his passing. Yeah. Brown won't. So I would every day of the week, every day of the year, I would go with Cam Dineen over Brown in the playoffs. And I know they think, oh, we need the toughness. No, you need to break their forecheck by quick passing, heady hockey, moving the puck. He's not your man. Everyone else is going to have to step up and be tough. Just be tough. Like play your toughest game. These like Draisaitl and McDavid, they're big, tough guys. Yep. They can handle this. I think. If I see Brown in, I'm not going to be happy, Kurt. It could happen, man. But if Klingberg's ready, I don't know why they wouldn't just go with him.
Well, look, I don't mean any disrespect to Josh Brown, but at this point in his career, he's an AHLer,
Yeah.
right? That's what he is. He's an eight. He's an NHL
Yeah.
eight, right? John Klingberg for it's a damn shame that that injury sapped him of all of that talent because he was a wonderful NHL defenseman. But even at 60% of what he used to be, and maybe I'm being generous, he's still a far superior skater and a far superior puck mover than Josh Brown is. It's not close, right?
Yeah.
When
It's
you
not
look at the
close.
fancy stats of all of the available defensemen for these slots that we're talking about, Cam Dineen actually has the best numbers. Yes, he has some chaos in his game defensively, but you know what? You're a better defensive defenseman when the puck is on your stick and it's moving out of your zone, and he is good at
Yeah.
that, right? Um, all this gets fixed if Troy Stetcher can play game two. But in the
Well, they have
meantime,
to still game one though, Kurt. They got to figure out who to go
I
with.
know
So
I agree, but I'm with you. I'm not the one who would have Josh Brown in there. I would pick Klingberg because he also has NHL playoff experience.
it's such an easy decision, unless he's hurt more than we think. Like I heard he blocked a puck, and that's how he got hurt. And was he the one who got infected? Did
Yeah,
someone say?
I understand he then developed an infection, and I don't know whether it's directly related to the puck blocking or not. You know, sometimes it's lace rash, and and
Oh,
and I don't know if that was this case, but you do see that. I've had lace rash, and it's nasty.
oh
Um,
God, that's horrible.
Yeah, right. So maybe it was that too. But you know, when listening to the coach, and I'm not sure how much to really believe him or not, but the coach sound pretty definitive that no, he was cleared and he was available. Right. So
I have this. One of my feet has an inordinately high arch, and I have to wear padding. I have to I miss eyelets in my skate when I whole rows of lacing them up. Otherwise,
right.
I just can't play. It's impossible, and it hurts so bad. It does. It really does. If
You know,
that's what it is.
before we started the podcast today, we were talking about Bobby Orr because Bobby
Yeah.
Orr is in the background of my shot. And Bobby was and is my hero, my hockey hero at least. And the one thing a lot of people didn't know about Bobby Orr is that he skated barefoot in his skates. He didn't wear socks. Can you
You ever?
imagine all the ratching against your ankles if you don't have athletic socks to protect your ankles? Like
Did you do that, Kurt? No socks?
I tried because Bobby did, and I couldn't do it. I tried everything because Bobby did it. And the fact that I'm sitting here and not in an NHLPA office probably speaks volumes.
Well, Paul Coffey he wore small skates, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody does. Everyone wears slightly smaller, but because of Coffee, I have size 10 feet, but I wear size 7 skates.
Oh, wow. That is a big difference.
So I really jam them in there. And it really helps. Like you really do feel more torque on your blade, like you have better control. Not for me, it makes a big difference. All right.
David Paul Coffee Staples.
I think someone compared me to Evan Bouchard this year, and I'm not sure it was in a good way.
How do you take that, right? That's rich. I love that. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
the Evan Bouchard of the second level of old timers hockey. All right, Kurt, what is your reason for doubt?
My reason for doubt is Oilers goaltending. And I realize that this is akin to feeding the trolls, but I think we need to call a spade a spade. And come out and admit that look, Stuart Skinner fell quite a ways from his playoff performance of 2024. And while he had games this year where he was excellent, his consistency was his biggest Achilles heel. It dogged him all year long. And if consistency is your problem in a short series like a Stanley Cup playoff series is, that is kryptonite, man. That is kryptonite. I'm fully expecting to see one of two Stuart Skinners. Lights out, Conn Smythe quality Stuart Skinner, or he'll be pulled after the first period in game one. And I don't know which we're going to get. I feel the teensiest bit better that Calvin Pickard had such an amazing year for a guy who was signed as an AHL backup, practically rescued the Oilers season last year. You can argue he in part rescued it again this year because he was good when Skinner wasn't. And of course, we all know Pickard went in that Vancouver series and pitched an awfully good game when he went in. So it's not like I feel we're throwing nothing in if Skinner can't answer the bell. But with all due respect to Cal Pickard, who I really, really like and respect, he is Calvin Pickard, right? He ain't Ken Dryden. And so I think if 20 minutes into game one, if Stuart Skinner is sitting on the bench and Calvin Pickard is in the game, something went wrong and the Oilers are in trouble.
Yeah. Kemper had a .922 save percentage this year. That's the last time he had a save percentage that good was 21-22 when he led the Colorado Avalanche to the Cup. He had a .921 save percentage that year.
And I don't think Kemper's a world beater, but I think he goes into this series the best goaltender in the series until he proves otherwise, right?
For sure. For sure. They just got to avoid the bad goal. Avoid that bad goal. And if Stu Skinner does that, we'll be okay, but he's got to avoid that. All right, Kurt. Well, we'll talk again tomorrow night. After game one. You got the game grades, man.
Yep. Always a privilege, I figure, to get game one. It's the new season starting fresh, man. It's exciting.
Indeed. Kurt, thanks for talking tonight.
Hey, it's my pleasure. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. And in the meantime, and in between time, and until we meet again, Bruce McCurdy in the hall of our fathers having a cold one with the hockey gourds. This has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.